everybody, to this fourth edition, this fourth installment of Signum Academy's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone Camp. I'm really excited to be back with you guys today because we are going to have, along with Harry, our first glimpses of Hogwarts today. And that is going to be so much fun because, as we all know, that's a castle to love, right? If you had to live in any castle in the world, wouldn't you choose Hogwarts? I know I would. So I am going to share my screen and we're going to go ahead and get started. There it is. Okay, so let's just take a really brief moment here to review what we've been talking about. We've talked about a few major themes in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And I want to make sure you guys know too that this isn't all the themes that we could talk about in this book. There are so many more, but I've just chosen a few so that we can focus our discussion. You're probably seeing a whole lot more that we could talk about as well. And those are things that you can talk about in your discussion groups, with your other campers, with your organizers, with your parents, with your friends who read Harry Potter. But we've been talking about interpretation and misinterpretation, characters looking at evidence, hearing things, seeing things, getting it wrong sometimes. We've been talking about appearance versus reality. There's a lot of that in the wizarding world, isn't there? Awful lot of that. We've been talking about JK Rowling's vivid descriptions and her wordplay. Remember what we did yesterday with the titles and authors of Harry's school books? Okay, so we've been talking about those things. We've been asking ourselves a couple of guiding questions as well. We've been talking about why didn't Dumbledore just come and save Harry? Or why did he leave him at his aunt and uncle's in the first place? Very important questions. We started to get a hint of an answer a little bit yesterday as we see Harry's character grow through the hardships that he's had to experience. Sometimes the hard times can make us grow and can make us grow a lot. And that leads to our second question as well that we've been working on. Why does Harry become the person he is? How can Harry still be Harry after all that he's experienced, all the abuse, all the neglect, and yet he turns out to be a really great person, not without flaws. All the characters in JK Rowling have flaws. But still, overall, Harry turns out to be a pretty good kid. How does that happen? And we're going to be talking about that more throughout the rest of the camp. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Harry's first glimpses of Hogwarts. Pretty special topic to talk about today. And we're actually going to start with his journey to Hogwarts on the Hogwarts Express. Now, Harry has to get to school, of course, somehow. He's got his ticket. Hagrid gave him the ticket after their little visit, after Hagrid took him to Diagon Alley to get all his school stuff. But he's got to get there. He's got to get to King's Cross Station in London. So he asks Uncle Vernon to take him. And Uncle Vernon really doesn't want to, but he's got to go up to London anyway. So he's going to take him, or he wouldn't bother otherwise. Do you remember why the Dursleys have to go to London anyway? Somebody write in and tell me. Remember, you can always write comments in that question box, comments and questions. How come the Dursleys have to go to London? Do you remember? What does Dudley still have going on with him? I see the answer there. Yeah, to remove Dudley's pigtail. Yeah, and not the hair kind, right? The actual tail that Hagrid gave him when he meant to turn him into a pig. Okay, so Vernon wouldn't bother otherwise, but he's got to take Dudley up to get that tail removed. So he leaves Harry off at King's Cross Station. And Harry knows what his ticket says. It says platform 9 3/4. But the problem is they can't see the platform 9 3/4, which Vernon rather nastily points out to him. It must not have been built yet. and the Dursleys walk out of the station laughing, leaving Harry with a large trunk and an owl, and no idea how to get where he's supposed to go. So he's asking for help. He's looking around. People are looking at him strangely. The guards are looking at him strangely. He is just not having a good moment here. Let's read what the text says. Harry was now trying hard not to panic. According to the large clock over the arrivals board, he had 10 minutes left to get on the train to Hogwarts, and he had no idea how to do it. He was stranded in the middle of a station with a trunk he could hardly lift, a pocket full of wizard money, and a large owl. Now that is probably a position that nobody really wants to be in, right? How would you feel if you were in that position? You're stranded in the middle of this busy station. You don't know where to go. Everybody's looking at you really funny, and you're stuck, and you've got 10 minutes to get on the train. Can you feel Harry's panic? The way JK Rowling writes this, we almost can, right? We can just feel how tense he must be and how nervous. And then help arrives in the form of a family, a real family, a red-haired family, a messy, joking, teasing, scolding, loving family. Now, Harry hasn't experienced this very often, right? He's experienced Hagrid now. He knows what it's like to have a friend. He knows what it's like for somebody to be kind to him, even to give him presents with no reason at all. Yes, it's birthday, but Hagrid wouldn't have had any reason to do that. And now he sees this family. This is his first experience with this kind of thing. And they show Harry a kindness that he's very seldom found. He finally has to ask for help. He has no other choice. What's he going to do? So he asks the red-haired mother how to get on the platform. Well, actually, he doesn't ask her in so many words, does he? He just sort of indicates that he's confused, he's upset. She sees his trunk, she sees his owl. She knows exactly what's going on. And she says, "Oh, Hogwarts too, dear? Come along, come with us." "Not to worry," she said. "All you have to do is walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Don't stop, and don't be scared you'll crash into it. That's very important. Best do it at a bit of a run if you're nervous. Go on, go now, before Ron." And Harry does. He gears up. Can you imagine? Now picture this in your mind, right? Picture what's going on here. He gears up. He's got his trolley with his trunk and his owl, and he starts heading straight at the platform wall between 9 and 10. And he thinks he's going to crash into it. In the real world, guess what? That would happen. In the Muggle world, the only real world he's known until just a little while ago, that's exactly what happened. All appearances, that's what's going to happen. But it doesn't happen. Harry goes right through the barrier, right onto platform 9 3/4, right into the midst of a crowd in front of a scarlet steam engine. Okay, but his interactions with that family, that red-haired family, don't stop there. Harry's having a big trouble getting that trunk of his up onto the train. Who shows up but the red-haired twins of the family? They help him out. They're polite. They're curious. They see his scar. They know who he is. But they're still polite. They're still very helpful. They give Harry all the help he needs. They talk to him very politely. Okay? Harry sits back after he gets on the train, and he's watching this family. He's watching the interaction between the mother and the children, and between all the children. And what's he seeing? He's seeing a mother that really cares about her kids, even though she embarrasses them sometimes, like wiping the dirt off of Ron's nose, or at least trying to wipe the dirt off of Ron's nose. He sees the kids giving each other a hard time. The twins are going to watch out for Ron, even though they tease him unmercifully. I bet those of you with siblings know all about that, huh? And Harry watches all this. He sees the youngest sister crying. She wants to go to Hogwarts with her brothers. And this is fascinating to Harry. He's fascinated by these family dynamics that he's never seen before. Remember what he's lived in? He's lived in the Dursley household. Ever since he first arrived, he was poked and prodded by his cousin, later beat up, always treated as kind of a servant, right? Get up and fix the bacon, fix breakfast for us. Lived under the stairs for most of his life, and now he's watching a real family. And he realizes, as he settles back into that train seat, that he's about to begin a new adventure. Something really different is happening to him. And so far, it's promising. It's nerve-wracking, as new things are, but it's promising. He's excited, he's scared, he's hopeful, he's nervous, all wrapped up into one. Harry felt a great leap of excitement. He didn't know what he was going to, but it had to be better than what he was leaving behind. Do you think so? I do. I think anything right now would almost have to be better than what Harry had come from. We're going to take just a moment out in this presentation today to talk a little bit more about the Hogwarts Express. We see this great big red, scarlet, bright steam engine. How many of you have seen a steam engine in person? If you were sitting in front of me right now, I don't know how many hands I'd see go up. They're pretty rare, aren't they, nowadays? I actually have seen a steam engine in person. I've seen them go through my hometown a few times, and they're fascinating to watch. They're very, very powerful. Have you ever wondered how the Wizarding World got the Hogwarts Express? Well, JK Rowling actually gave us a hint about that, more than a hint, really. She told us the story of how the Hogwarts Express came to be in the Wizarding World. And I'm going to read this to you, just because I feel like it is a way for us to dig into the Wizarding World even more. That's the nice thing about the Harry Potter books, right? We can focus on the book and really dig deeply into it, but our author has given us so many supplements. She has written other things about the Wizarding World that can help us understand more and better and get a better picture of exactly how this strange place works. So we're going to read about the Hogwarts Express. Now this is on Pottermore if you want to go and read it yourself, pottermore.com. There's a lot of JK Rowling extra writing on there, a lot of articles written by other people, pictures, all kinds of stuff. Some of you probably already know it. Those of you who don't, get your mom and dad's permission and go check on it. You'll love it. But I'm going to read to you about the Hogwarts Express and how that came to be part of the Wizarding World. So, JK Rowling writes, as we know from early historical accounts and from the evidence of early woodcuts and engravings, Hogwarts students used to arrive at school in any manner that caught their fancy. Some rode broomsticks, a difficult feat when carrying trunks and pets. Others commandeered enchanted carts and later carriages. Some attempted to apparate, often with disastrous effects, as the castle and grounds have always been protected with anti-apparition charms. Others rode a variety of magical creatures. In spite of the accidents attendant on these various modes of magical transport, not to mention the annual Muggle sightings of vast numbers of airborne wizards traveling northwards, it remained the responsibility of parents to convey their children to school, right up to the imposition of the International Statute of Secrecy, in 1692. At this point, it became a matter of urgency to find some more discreet method of transporting hundreds of wizarding children from all over Britain to their secret school in the Highlands of Scotland. Portkeys were therefore arranged at collecting points all over Britain. The logistics caused problems from the start. Up to a third of students would fail to arrive every year, having missed their time slot or been unable to find the unobtrusive enchanted object that would transport them to their school. There was also the unfortunate fact that many children were, and are, portkey sick. You guys might get car sick, portkey sick, right? And the hospital wing was frequently full to bursting for the first few days of every year, while susceptible students overcame their hysterics and nausea. While admitting that portkeys were not an ideal solution to the problem of school transportation, the Ministry of Magic failed to find an acceptable alternative. A return to the unregulated travel of the past was impossible, and yet a more secure route to the school, for instance, permitting a fireplace that might be officially entered by flue powder, was strongly resisted by successive headmasters who did not wish the security of the castle to be breached. A daring and controversial solution to the thorny problem was finally suggested by Minister for Magic Madeline L'Engle, who was much intrigued by the Muggle inventions and saw the possibility in trains. Where exactly the Hogwarts Express came from has never been conclusively proven, although it is a fact that there are secret records at the Ministry of Magic detailing a mass operation involving 167 memory charms and the largest ever mass concealment charm performed in Britain. The morning after the alleged crimes, a gleaming scarlet steam engine and carriages astounded the villagers of Hogsmeade, who had not realized they had a railway station. While several bemused Muggle railway workers down in Crewe spent the rest of the year grappling with the uncomfortable feeling that they had mislaid something important. The Hogwarts Express underwent several magical modifications before the ministry approved it for school use. Many pure-blood wizard families were outraged at the idea of their children using Muggle transport, which they claimed was unsafe, insanitary, and demeaning. However, as the ministry decreed that students either rode the train or did not attend school, the objections were swiftly silenced. Now that's how the wizarding world got the Hogwarts Express. Pretty neat story, except for those poor Muggle railway workers who really thought they mislaid something important, as indeed they did. They just didn't remember. Okay, so now we see Harry on the Hogwarts Express. The compartment door opened, and in walks the youngest red-haired brother, who we find out is named Ron Weasley. They are fascinated by each other, Harry and Ron. Absolutely fascinated. Ron, of course, knows that this is the famous Harry Potter. He sees his scar. He kind of hints around, asking him, well, do you remember anything? A little disappointed when Harry says, lots of green light. Well, that's about it. But Harry is just as fascinated by Ron. This is the first young man, the first, except for the drawling boy that hugs her in Diagon Alley. This is the first friendly, I should say, perhaps, wizarding young man that he's met. Ron has a hard time grasping that Harry could be interested in him. To him, his life is normal, not interesting. He has a lot of brothers, so he always has to do up to them, right? Try to be as good as they are, and yet it's no big deal if he does because they've done it first. Maybe some of you with older siblings feel that way sometimes. Okay, so he really usually feels kind of left out, kind of behind. And he's embarrassed. He's embarrassed by his hand-me-downs. Remember, he's got to wear somebody's old robes. He's got Charlie's old wand. He's got Percy's old rat. Even his pet is a hand-me-down. And he's embarrassed. But Harry's not. Harry didn't think there was anything wrong with not being able to afford an owl. After all, he'd never had any money in his life until a month ago, and he told Ron so. All about having to wear Dudley's old clothes and never getting proper birthday presents. This seemed to cheer Ron up. Remember, Harry then gets a whole bunch of sweets off the cart. Oh, and oh, what kinds of sweets. And he wants to share. He's never had anybody to really share with before. So he says to Ron, go on, have a pasty. said Harry, who had never had anything to share before, or indeed anyone to share it with. It was a nice feeling, sitting there with Ron, eating their way through all Harry's pasties and cakes. Oh, the sweets, huh? Harry's never gotten to eat that kind of sweets before. Remember he was going to buy Mars bars? Well, he found some other things a lot better than Mars bars. What's your favorite Hogwarts sweet? Somebody write in and tell me. What do you like the best? What would you love to try of the sweets that Harry gets? What do you think? I see the jelly beans, the Bertie Bott's every flavored beans, the frogs, yeah, chocolate frogs. Yeah, I like those chocolate frogs, I think. We're going to talk about those more in a minute. And those Bertie Bott's every flavored beans. And remember, when they say every flavor, they mean every flavor, right? Our Jelly Bellies that we have, nothing compared to Bertie Bott's. But yes, Harry starts eating through his sweets and he comes across chocolate frogs. Kind of wonders for a minute if they really are frogs. But he's fascinated especially by the cards of the famous witches and wizards that he sees in these chocolate frog packages. They're collectibles to the kids, like we would collect baseball cards. Okay, they collect chocolate frog cards of famous witches and wizards. And the first one Harry gets is a familiar figure to us already, but not to Harry. Although he's going to be, Harry gets Albus Dumbledore. And here's what Dumbledore's card has to say about him. Albus Dumbledore, currently headmaster of Hogwarts, considered by many the greatest wizard of modern times. Professor Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel. Professor Dumbledore enjoys chamber music and 10-pin bowling. Keep that card in your brains for the rest of this book. Those of you who have read the book before, you know why. If there's anybody that hasn't, remember this card. JK Rowling, she is a master of putting hints that we need to know in unexpected places. Remember that. Also fascinating to Harry are the moving pictures. Wizard pictures move, which is really cool, right? Albus Dumbledore, he just kind of disappears out of his frame for a little while. And that startles Harry to no end. And Ron says very simply, well, what do you expect? He's not going to wait around all day. And Harry can't grasp that as he tells Ron, in the Muggle world, pictures stand still. This is new. This is unusual. This is fun. Okay, so Harry's got a lot of things to get used to, but he's doing it really pretty quickly, right? Especially now that he has a friend to explain things and to share things with. That's probably one of the most important things. Harry has a friend his own age. Yeah, Hagrid's a friend too, and that's wonderful. But now he's got a friend his own age. He's got a peer, an equal, somebody that he can really share life with. And that's important. Think for a minute about your own best friends and what you do together, and how sometimes you can just sit and not have to say much. You understand each other. Well, Ron and Harry, they're already starting to get like that. Pretty quick. Both of them needed a friend, and they found that. And now they're about to meet somebody who becomes a friend too, in a different sort of way, and not quite so quickly. We get our first glimpse of Hermione Granger. Remember, Ron has just tried to do a spell to turn Scabbers the rat yellow. And it's kind of a dud. It was given to him, I think, by George, by one of the twins at any rate. And it's not a real spell. It's a fake spell. Ron doesn't know that. The twins have a good laugh. And Ron doesn't know any better. He tries it on Scabbers. It doesn't work, of course. And then a rather bushy-haired girl with pretty large front teeth pops into their carriage. And she comes out with the following. "Are you sure that's a real spell?" said the girl. "Well, it's not very good, is it? I've tried a few simple spells, just for practice, and it's all worked for me. Nobody in my family's magic at all. It was ever such a surprise when I got my letter, but I was ever so pleased, of course. I mean, it's the very best school of witchcraft there is, I've heard. I've learned all our set books off by heart, of course. I just hope it will be enough. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you?" What do you think of Hermione the first time you see her? Somebody write in if you want to. What's your first impression of Hermione? What do you think? What's she like? Would you like her for a friend? What do you think of Hermione Granger? Nobody quite knows what to say? That's all right. It's hard to know what to think of Hermione Granger at first, isn't it? We remember her later. We all come to really like her. I think at least most of us do. But she doesn't start off on a very good foot, does she? Somebody says she's a know-it-all. Yeah, she kind of is, isn't she? Look at how she acts. Okay, she's got a bossy sort of voice. Whoops, excuse me. I just did something silly, didn't I? There we go. Put the slide back where it belongs. There we go. Okay, she's got this bossy sort of voice. She uses a lot of words. She's kind of bragging. Yeah, somebody says she's a little bossy. That she is. She's kind of bragging. She's kind of breathless. What do you think? She's nervous. Have you ever thought about that before? Hermione Granger didn't know she was a witch until she got her Hogwarts letter. She's a lot like Harry that way. She grew up in a Muggle family. She probably didn't realize that there was anything strange going on around her, that it was magic. This is all new to her too, and she's nervous. She's scared. She's trying to comfort herself as much as she's trying to impress the people around her. "I just hope it will be enough," she says. "I've learned all our books already. I just hope it'll be enough." She's really terrified. And that's why she talks so much. That's why she appears bossy and like a know-it-all sometimes. She's insecure. Have you ever known people like that? When they're insecure, when they're scared, they try to act the exact opposite. They try to show the world the opposite of what they're really feeling inside. Have you done that sometimes? I think we all have. When we're really scared, we try to bluster and brag and comfort ourselves, make ourselves feel better. And that's what Hermione is doing here. She's just as terrified as anybody else on that train, and probably more so. And she's trying to make up for it the best way she knows how. Of course, she's not impressing anybody by doing so. And it takes her a while to get out of that mode, as we will see. Okay, so eventually Hermione and Neville, we also meet Neville, who's always in search of his poor lost toad. After those two leave, Ron and Harry talk about different things. They talk about the robbery that's happened at Gringotts Bank. And Harry's surprised about that. Remember, we read the inscription that was at Gringotts' doors. "Beware thief. There are things hidden beneath these floors that you will find if you try to take things that aren't yours." Okay, they talk about all kinds of things. And notice that Ron doesn't say Voldemort's name. People in the wizarding world usually don't say Voldemort's name. They don't even want to name him. They're so scared of him. So they say, "You know who," or "he who must not be named." And Harry, he's been saying Voldemort. But now he's trying to kind of get in the habit of fitting in, not saying the name, not saying Voldemort. And yet that's giving him a prickle of fear. Harry turned this news over in his mind about the robbery. He was starting to get a prickle of fear every time you-know-who was mentioned. He supposed this was all part of entering the magical world, but it had been a lot more comfortable saying Voldemort without worrying. Yeah, isn't that true? It's better to face up to something, to a reality, than to hide it behind a cushion somewhere or behind another name. Harry's entering into a new world now, a mysterious, an unknown world. And he's starting to get really nervous about it. He was much more comfortable just saying Voldemort and being done with it. But now he's entered into this world that doesn't say the name. And it starts to infect him too, that little trickle of fear going down him. And then somebody else shows up. Somebody else, 3 people show up. The drawling boy from Madame Malkin's and his 2 friends, shall we say. Let's meet the drawling boy. Draco Malfoy. His name literally means, get this, guys, Draco, dragon, Malfoy, bad faith in French. Draco Malfoy, dragon, bad faith. How would you like a name like that? It suits him, I think. Certainly bad faith fits his family fairly well from what we learn later on. But no wonder Ron snickers when he hears his name. Draco Malfoy. And he's with Crabbe and Goyle. Think of the sounds of those names. We talked about JK Rowling and her wordplay before. Here's another example of it, where she gives names that really fit the characters. Even the sound Crabbe and Goyle. They sound heavy and thumpy and maybe crabby, not very nice. Even the sound is hard on our ears, right? Okay, and Draco has a little plan here. He's got an agenda. He has heard that the famous Harry Potter is on the train, and he wants to introduce Harry to the right set. He wants to get Harry as his friend. Friends with Harry Potter? That means fame. That means power. That means recognition, or at least it could. Draco knows that, and so he tries. He holds out his hand, and he says, "You'll soon find out. Some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." He held out his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. "I think I can tell who the wrong sort are for myself, thanks," he said coolly. Now here is Harry standing up for something he believes is right. Okay? He shows integrity. Know what integrity is? It's meaning to choose the right thing, to be a whole person, to choose what you know is right and to stand up for it even when it's not easy. It doesn't feel good, perhaps, to do it, but you know it's right, so you do it anyway. That's what Harry's doing here. He's got strong moral principles. He's already made a friend. He likes Ron Weasley. He likes Ron's family. Remember the Weasleys showing him that kind of family dynamic that he's never experienced before? He likes that. That to him speaks of love, fellowship, companionship, comfort. That's good stuff. And he recognizes it's good stuff. And he's not willing to let go of that, even in the face of Draco's hints and kind of veiled threats. Harry knows better. Harry knows who he is. And he knows that he's not like Draco, because he knows he's not like Dudley. He knows he's not like the Dursleys. And Draco reminds him of them. Let's see, I got a question here. I wonder if Malfoy ever got that broom. Yeah, I wonder so too. We're going to talk about brooms in the next couple of lessons here. We'll see about Draco and his brooms, or what he thinks about brooms. Okay, so Harry and Ron, they choose to stand up for themselves, even against the bullies. You know, Harry thought we'll probably get the worst end of the fight here. Crabbe and Goyle, they're pretty big, they're pretty scary, but he's not going to back down. He's not going to let them steamroll him. He's not going to let them intimidate him or Ron. They're going to stand up for what's right. And guess who steals the show? Do you remember what happens? Harry and Ron don't have to do much of anything because what happens? Somebody type it in. What happens next? Who steals the show on them? Remember? No, not Hermione. Good guess, though. No, not Trevor either. You're getting closer. There is one little, yeah, Scabbers. There is one little sleepy rat buried in that candy that Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle want to steal from Harry and Ron. And that little rat bites them. And they get out quick as can be, whip Scabbers around, throw him against the window. Rat goes back to sleep, doesn't affect him any. And they're out of there. Okay, so Harry and Ron have had their first confrontation with the bullies, Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle. And they've come out on the better side of it, thanks to the rat and his teeth. Okay, so we're almost at Hogwarts by this time. Hermione's kind of bustling around, making sure everything is good to go. Everybody's got their wizarding robes on. Think of how nervous she is. She's trying to look out for everybody else, and she's really scared too. She's just trying to show it in a different way. And we get to Hogwarts. We get our first glimpses of Hogwarts. We see the lake. We see the boats that they go through the lake, through the ivy going down. Hagrid meets them. Hagrid knocks on the door of the castle, and we're about to enter Hogwarts. Before we do, though, let's take a quick look at our journal question for Chapter 6. Harry meets a lot of people at the train station and on the journey to Hogwarts. Make a Who Does Harry Meet list of characters for this chapter. Who does Harry meet? Harry is getting an introduction to the wizarding world in a big way now. Who's he meeting? And we might also ask ourselves, how does that person affect Harry? The Weasleys, he sees a family in action. Ron, he finds a friend. Hermione kind of annoys him at this point. He has a first confrontation with Draco. Harry's meeting all of these different people who are going to shape the rest of his years at Hogwarts. It's a lot to take in for Harry and readers, so make your list. See if you can sort everybody out. Okay, and speaking of sorting, we are getting to the sorting hat pretty soon. Chapter 7, Harry's first entrance into Hogwarts. They are met at the door by Professor McGonagall, and the first years are taken to a little small chamber off of the Great Hall. They're waiting, they're going to get sorted, they're nervous. Remember, they look a little funny. Neville's got his cloak buttoned up against his ear. Ron still has something on his nose. Everybody's scared silly. And it doesn't help when the ghosts come flying through the room either. That's enough to scare anybody, nervous or not. But Professor McGonagall, she's got some things to explain to these new first years. And she says, the sorting is a very important ceremony because while you are here, your house will be something like your family within Hogwarts. You will have classes with the rest of your house, sleep in your house dormitory, and spend free time in your house common room. The 4 houses are called Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Each house has its own noble history, and each has produced outstanding witches and wizards. Harry hears all this. He thinks the family thing sounds pretty good, right? I mean, to somebody who's never really had a family, now he's had a chance. Well, he's going to get in one of these houses, he hopes. And this is going to be kind of his new family. But boy, is he nervous. And he enters into the Great Hall with the other first years. Harry had never even imagined such a strange and splendid place. It was lit by thousands and thousands of candles, which were floating in midair over 4 long tables, where the rest of the students were sitting. These tables were laid with glittering golden plates and goblets. At the top of the hall was another long table, where teachers were sitting. Harry looked upwards and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. He heard Hermione whisper, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside." Picture the Great Hall for a moment. We've talked about JK Rowling's vivid descriptions, haven't we? Can you just picture that? Thousands of candles floating in midair beneath a ceiling that looks like the sky, the starry sky outside. Picture the tables, the 4 long tables laid with golden plates and goblets. Think about the contrast between the dark sky, the candle lights, and the shiny golden goblets and plates, reflecting that candle light and reflecting the ceiling. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And Harry and the other first years kind of notice, but they're still a little bit too scared to really know what's going on. They don't know how they're going to get sorted into their houses. So they're all surprised when Professor McGonagall brings up a little stool and a patched, frayed, and extremely dirty wizard hat. The sorting hat. It's got a rip for a mouth. And before they know it, it opens that rip, that mouth, and it begins to sing. And I'm going to read out the entire Sorting Hats song for you. I won't sing it. I will spare you that. But I am going to read it because this sets the foundation for much of what we see in the rest of the books. "Oh, you may not think I'm pretty, but don't judge on what you see. I'll eat myself if you can find a smarter hat than me. You can keep your bowlers black, your top hat sleek and tall, for I'm the Hogwarts sorting hat, and I can cap them all. There's nothing hidden in your head the sorting hat can't see. So try me on, and I will tell you where you ought to be. You might belong in Gryffindor, where dwell the brave at heart. Their daring, nerve, and chivalry set Gryffindors apart. You might belong in Hufflepuff, where they are just and loyal. Those patient Hufflepuffs are true and unafraid of toil. Or yet in wise old Ravenclaw, if you've a ready mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind. Or perhaps in Slytherin, you'll make your real friends. Those cunning folks use any means to achieve their ends. So put me on, don't be afraid, and don't get in a flap. You're in safe hands, though I have none, for I'm a thinking cap." I just love the Sorting Hat. Every year I look forward to the Sorting Hat song. Somebody says, "I wonder if the magical sky shows the weather outside." Yeah, it does. Because remember later on in the book, we see a stormy sky on the ceiling? So yes, it reflects that. They've got it specially enchanted, so it shows exactly what's going on. It's like being outside almost when you're in the Great Hall, which is pretty cool. Okay, so this Sorting Hat. He gives us more details about those 4 houses. Gryffindor, the brave, the daring, the chivalrous, doing the right thing. Okay, Hufflepuff, just and loyal and hardworking and patient. Ravenclaw, the ones with wit and learning, ready mind, and Slytherin, the cunning folks who do what they can to meet their goals, but who find real friendship for themselves. Okay, so each house is presented according to its characteristics. And not even Slytherin is presented as being all bad. Keep that in mind. And Harry, of course, now he's listening to all this. And he's thinking, none of those fit me right now. Not a bit. Maybe if there was a house for people who were a little bit queasy, that would be his house. And he has a horrible thought. A horrible thought struck Harry, as horrible thoughts always do when you're very nervous. What if he wasn't chosen at all? What if he just sat there with the hat over his eyes for ages until Professor McGonagall jerked it off his head and said there had obviously been a mistake and he'd better get back on the train? You ever had a thought like that? Huh? Have you ever had a thought like Harry's? A horrible thought when you're nervous. Somebody else has asked a question about the floor of the Great Hall. I don't think we ever get a description of the floor, do we? There's a little project for somebody if you want to look through the books. See if you can find a description of the hall floor. I know the entryway is kind of a flagstone, like a big stone floor, so maybe the hall is too. There's a project for somebody. See if you can find out what the Great Hall floor is. Okay. Oh, and somebody's doing a diorama of the Great Hall. Wanted to know if we could paint it to reflect the book. I think that'd be a great idea. Send pictures. We'd love to see pictures of your dioramas. That'd be awesome. Okay, so we have Harry's turn now to be sorted. He's thinking he is not really fit for any house at this point, maybe for somebody who's a little queasy. And he sits down, he puts the sorting hat on his head. Harry gripped the edges of the stool and thought, not Slytherin, not Slytherin. Not Slytherin, eh? Said the small voice. Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head. And Slytherin will help you on the way to greatness. No doubt about that. No? Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor. And the hat shouts the word that last word to the whole hall. Now notice something here. Harry has made a choice. The hat didn't so much sort him as it looked at what was going on in Harry's brain and took that into account. He chose not to be in Slytherin, and the sorting hat honored that choice. Okay, keep in mind how much influence Harry really had over his house assignment. He didn't want to be in Slytherin. So the hat put him in the next best thing, or what he had thought was probably the next best thing for Harry, Gryffindor. What houses are you guys in? Have you ever been sorted? If you go on to Pottermore, there's other sites too, but Pottermore, you can be sorted into your house. Okay, so get permission from your parents before you do it, but you can go on to Pottermore. Somebody have a house? You can write it in if you like. I'll tell you what my house is. I am a Slytherin. So I am actually in Slytherin. And that's why I know that Slytherin is not all bad. In fact, there's a lot of good Slytherins too. Some of the rest of you, what houses are you in? Gryffindor, good for you. Ravenclaw. Okay, somebody else? Oh, there we go. Hufflepuff. Hey, we've got a full set, don't we? Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, and Slytherin. There's at least one of us from each one. Very cool. Right? If you want to know your house and you don't know it yet, like I said, head over to pottermore.com. What was the site for sorting? Somebody asks. Well, they're in the Great Hall, if that's what you mean. They're sitting up in front of the teacher's table. They're facing the school, the rest of the school. The teachers are at their backs, and they're looking out over the rest of the students. And they're sitting on that little three-legged stool with the hat on. And remember, when they put the hat on, they can't really see because the hat comes down over their eyes because they're so small. Okay, so that's pretty much our sight, what we look at when we're looking at this sorting. Okay, and remember what happens to Neville? He gets sorted into Gryffindor and he runs off still wearing the hat, and everybody laughs, of course. But that's okay. He's a Gryffindor, and we know what happens later. Okay, so Harry, he's just pretty relieved at this point because he's been sorted. He hasn't been sent home on the train. There is a house for him, and it's not Slytherin. He has helped make that choice of where he goes, into which house. And he's sitting at the Gryffindor table, talking to everybody else, talking to nearly headless Nick. Remember that? They find out how a ghost could be nearly headless. Pottermore has an excellent explanation of nearly headless Nick, if you want to go and read that. Very good character sketch of him. And he looks up at the teacher's table. And something strange happens. It happened very suddenly. The hook-nosed teacher looked past Quirrell's turban straight into Harry's eyes, and a sharp, hot pain shot across the scar on Harry's forehead. Interesting. We've got three elements here. We've got the hook-nosed teacher with his greasy black hair and his sallow or kind of yellowish skin. We've got Quirrell with his funny-looking turban. And we've got Harry. Now we know that when that hook-nosed teacher, Snape, we know that he's Professor Snape, meets Harry's eyes, Harry feels a sharp pain in his forehead. His scar hurts. That's the first time that's ever happened that he can remember. Okay, so we've got this evidence. And we know that Harry is going to think that that hook-nosed teacher, Professor Snape, has something to do with his scar hurting. Think about interpretations. Think about misinterpretations. Does Harry get it right? Right now, he's not real sure what's going on, but later on, he's going to make an interpretation. And he's going to think, it was Snape. It was Snape that made my scar hurt. What's going on here? We'll keep reading. We'll see if Harry gets it right, if he's made a good interpretation or a bad one. Okay, keep that in mind as the story progresses. And of course, Harry has this marvelous feast. Oh my goodness, the food at Hogwarts. I was reading in a book about the movie, talking about how they made the Harry Potter movies. That for the first couple of movies, they actually brought in real food for the Hogwarts feasts, and lots of it. They had actually cooking stations on the film sites where they were shooting these films, except there was a little problem with that. Using real food under the hot lights for a long time, it stunk horribly. People were getting sick, so they had to make a change. But at any rate, we can think about this wonderful food that they have at Hogwarts. And Harry, he might have eaten just a touch too much of that good food. Perhaps Harry had eaten a bit too much because he had a very strange dream. He was wearing Professor Quirrell's turban, which kept talking to him, telling him he must transfer to Slytherin at once because it was his destiny. Harry told the turban he didn't want to be in Slytherin. It got heavier and heavier, and there was Malfoy, laughing at him as he struggled with it. Then Malfoy turned into the hook-nosed teacher, Snape, whose laugh became high and cold. There was a burst of green light, and Harry woke, sweating and shaking. What happens here? We've got all kinds of elements, don't we? We've got Professor Quirrell in his turban. Turban's talking to him. We've got the Slytherin thing. Harry's supposed to be in Slytherin. Or so the turban tells him. We've got Malfoy. We've got Snape. We've got a high, cold laugh. We've got a burst of green light. My goodness, what a conglomeration. Is there anything that Harry's subconscious is trying to tell him in this dream? What's the author trying to hint at to her readers? How are we supposed to see this? This is a dream to keep in mind for the rest of the book. Even for the rest of the series, I would argue that JK Rowling has set up some things very, very important in this dream. Remember this one. We're going to come back to this as the book progresses and talk about it again. Okay, so we leave Harry there, having woken up from his dream. He didn't remember it the next morning, as we often do with our dreams. We forget them. Sometimes we remember. So let's talk about your other journal question for Chapter 7. Which Hogwarts house would you choose to be your own, and why? Many of you are sorted. So tell me what you like then about your house. What fits you about your house? What doesn't? Why do you like it? Why aren't you happy in it? There's all kinds of things you can do. And if you haven't been sorted, pick a house you'd like to be in and talk about that. Remember I said we're making these books our own. We're really trying to enter into the story and become part of the wizarding world. So we all ought to have a house, right? Okay, questions, comments from you guys? What do you want to ask about Harry Potter at this point? About Harry Potter's world? Or what really strikes you? Or scares you, perhaps, or disturbs you about these couple of chapters? What do you think? Anybody got questions for me today? We've had some good ones already. I'll give you a minute to type them in. Okay, so next time then, we're going to watch Harry start school. We're going to see what happens as Harry starts his classes. Got a question here. Why does Mrs. Fig's house smell like cabbage? Good question. Have you guys ever cooked cabbage? Or had somebody around you cook cabbage? Cabbage stinks. It tastes really good. I like cabbage, but it smells really bad. And it stays around a long time. My grandma used to fix cabbage for us sometimes, and her house smelled like cabbage for quite a while afterwards. So apparently, Mrs. Fig, she just really likes cabbage, and her house just has that smell because apparently she eats it a lot. For somebody who doesn't like cabbage, that's really nasty, right? Oh, why do the pictures move? Good question. Wizarding World pictures are developed in a magical solution that make them move afterwards. Or if it's a painting, it's painted with some magical paint and then there's a spell put on it so that it captures part of the person's character even. Remember all the headmaster's portraits in Dumbledore's office? How they're always giving him advice? Yep, so there's very important spells put on these pictures so that they move. They're developed in a certain way. And it's fun too. Other questions? Okay, so tomorrow we're gonna watch Harry get started in his Hogwarts classes. So I'm gonna say goodbye to all of you magical people for today, and we'll see you tomorrow back here at Signum Academy's Harry Potter camp. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.